You're flipped on the side as well.
Oh. Okay. How do we
I'm,
turn
I'm,
this?
I'm, I'm looking at me normal and you're flipped.
Me too. I'm looking at me normal and you're flipped. Well, we're obviously going to cut a little bit of that out because we don't need all that in the background. But G'day, Ray Ellis. Ray Ellis, the Director of First National Real Estate. Thanks so much for coming on board.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks so much for being on and giving us your time. Ray, I just wanted to have a chat to you and see how things are going and see where you're at the moment. What does day-to-day look like for Ray Ellis at the moment?
Well, day-to-day is a very special day, or not a special day in Melbourne here, because the curfew came in 2 nights ago, so it's almost 8 o'clock, so no one can go out in Melbourne. And the full stage 4 lockdown commences at midnight tonight, so everyone left the office today. There's only a couple of us working there, so for those people who have understanding of history, it was like the Americans leaving Vietnam. We were carrying computers out, files, paperwork, just evacuating the building. It was quite an eerie situation. Melbourne's very quiet at the moment. And so day today was a sad day, but a different day. But apart from that, it's been a very hectic couple of days getting preparation for the lockdown. But our industry, it's been a very hectic couple of months where I'm pleased to say that real estate has been going quite well in the current conditions, particularly in regional areas.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, yourself as a leader, waking up in the morning, and I'm interested to know, First National obviously has offices all around Australia. What happens for yourself being the leader of your group in Melbourne? How do you go about inspiring the troops? How do you go about leading the troops, being in a state that is the most heavily impacted state across Australia?
Well, obviously there's the international perspective. We're in New Zealand as well, and I've got a session like this in New Zealand tomorrow. Victoria is a difficult environment at the moment, and the rest of Australia has gone through its own challenges in the past 6 months. But just to touch on Victoria, the main thing at the moment is just being in touch with people. And it's a hackneyed phrase to say communicate. But when I say communicate, normally I'm in an office every couple of days, or I'm at a meeting every couple of days, because the key part of leadership is being out there with your people, inspiring them. And a true definition of leadership is to give people hope that tomorrow is going to be better than today. And I did a video to all our officers, primarily Victorian people, this week, and I touched on 2 important aspects of what I've learned in this situation. Because, in my career, I've had lots of difficulties and lots of challenges, but nothing that has had the impact of what this has had on people's lives, their morale, their ability to get out of the bed in the morning. So the 2 points I touched on was, first off, is the quality of agents in our industry, because we are the dream weavers. We sell people their dreams, be it an investment or their home or whatever. So we're the counsellors, we're the information providers. And what is the true skill set of a real estate agent has come to the fore. And that quality of counselling, that quality of advice has been tremendous. But the other point I touched on, which I think is an important lesson, I pitched it at young people. And by young people, I say anyone who was under the age of 40, because we've had tremendous economic conditions in Australia the past 30 years. So if you're under 40, this applies to everybody, but particularly if you're under 40, you are getting that university degree in life that you didn't know you had to sit for. And what that is teaching you is resilience, changing conditions day by day. It's making you become a better person. It's making you relate to people differently. It's making you a better person to work with, of all those challenges from working home. So that university degree of life that we didn't know we had to set for is an important message to get across. And that's what I've been trying to spread the last couple of weeks.
That's amazing.
It's an old cliche, tough times don't last, tough people do.
I
sort of agree with that. But
on my wall in my living room. I love that, Ray.
And people now learning about that, because I mean, our media is full of blame because everything is a win or a defeat or a backflip or a step forward, and that's another discussion. And I try not to get hung up on that because there's plenty of opportunities to find out went wrong, particularly here in Victoria. But I'm more concerned about people's lives on a day-to-day basis of what gets them out of bed in the morning. So that, apart from all the economic stuff and the data and the budgets and the systems and the procedures, that's what I call normal business. At the moment, my main aspect is to help people to have better lives over the coming times.
I love that. And I mean, I've been in real estate personally for myself for the last 10 years. People that are on our side of the fence understand what we're talking about. People that aren't obviously don't, but we get involved in our customers, our clients, personal lives on a day-to-day basis because they're making sometimes the biggest decision that they've ever made, or whether they're buying their first home or their second home or their dream home. This for people is the biggest decision that they've ever made. And so you're getting involved in your customers or your clients' day-to-day lives because, regardless of how good you are or if you have a home that somebody desperately wants to buy, there is always going to be that gap. And there's always going to be that moment where they have that moment of panic where they're like, oh my goodness, am I making the right decision? Am I doing the right thing? And they involve us in that decision-making process. I don't know whether my job's secure or I don't know how secure my job's going to be. I don't know how long my partner's. We want to have kids. Is this house going to be big enough? And for a real estate agent, and most real estate agents, we're not only an agent, but we're also therapists, really, aren't we?
We're a counsellor.
We are a counsellor because this, for people, is the biggest decision that they have. And for most people that we deal with, this is the biggest decision that they've ever made. Like, you're not talking about going and do we go... are we getting Granny Smith apples or are we getting other apples? I don't even know what other apples there are. But, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis? We don't need to consult anybody. But when it's a massive decision, like, am I buying into the right area? Am I buying to the right house? The person that they lean on is usually the agent. It's usually the sales agent. And so for people involved in real estate, they get involved in people's lives and circumstances and situations. But then
that's a strong message I do in all my media. The local real estate agent is the expert in that area, be it schools, freeway extensions, transport, infrastructure, shops. And that's what people's daily lives are about. And the local real estate agent can provide that advice, and that helps the transition because the most fearful thing people do in their lives is public speaking. And the most second fearful thing is moving house. It's the most stressful time or whatever. And moving house is a result of buying that property or moving into a different area or whatever. So I understand exactly what you're talking about, Jimmy. It's what our industry does every day, and we do it very well.
We're therapists, and we don't get paid for it to be on the therapy side, but we do get paid as that coach to sort of navigate them through that big decision-making process. And regardless of how good we are at it, there is always still that gap. There is always still that gap that the customer needs to take that step where they trust the person providing that information. I guess it's a good thing to lead on to with how do you train your staff and how do you get them involved in that decision-making process, and what is that training that you go through with anybody at First National where you say, look, welcome to real estate, or you may have been involved in real estate for however many years, but what we value ourselves as a company and what we value is taking through that customer through that decision-making process to make sure they're making the right financial or investment or emotional decision. Is it something that you're always thinking of, or something that you're always aware of?
Again, real estate, like a lot of decisions, it's an emotional purchase. I mean, if you have a budget, most houses you're looking at for that budget are in that price range. Some of them have a couple of distinguishing features, north facing, different side of the street, one extra bedroom, bigger garage, not life-changing things, but nuances. So the emotional choice of, I love that kitchen, or I love that back garden, or whatever. And that's what we have to hone in the selling process. But in the training or development one, what you were saying before, I have two simple rules. I don't employ a lot of staff in my current position, but I have over the journey in many industries. The first question you should ask someone is, what job did you have at high school? Because if they had a job at high school, they know about the value of money. They know about the value of hard work. They just didn't rely on getting free pocket money from their mum and dad every week. It's never let me down. And the second one is,
I love that.
When you're employing someone, I can teach anybody anything, or my team can, but I cannot teach people attitude and enthusiasm. If they don't have the right attitude or the right enthusiasm, there's no point employing them. So they just want to go through the motions, and it's a process. It's another database. It's another text message. It's another email. That's the process of business. But if you have the attitude or enthusiasm, you can get through anything. I'll give you the perfect example. This is many years ago now. I was in our office in Sydney, and I was just getting out of the lift, and a young lady got in, and she looked like a young girl straight out of high school. She tried hard with her makeup and a nice dress and everything, as a 17-year-old should. And I said hello, and she said hello. I didn't know who she was. She didn't know who I was. And I walked in the office. I said, who was that young lady? And they said, oh, she was here for the new receptionist position. I said, oh, how was she? Oh, no, she won't get the job. She doesn't know about Excel or spreadsheets or PowerPoint. And she's had a pretty hard life. And I said, oh, what happened? Oh, well, her father died when she was 10. And, during high school, she had to get out of bed every morning to work in the bakery before school. And then after school, work in the chemist to help her mum pay the rent. I said, employer now.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but she doesn't have, I said, I don't care what she hasn't got. She has got, if she's getting out of bed at 5:30 every morning before she goes to school to help her mum pay the rent, she's a gem. And she turned out to be exactly that, because she had the attitude and the enthusiasm. The processes of business, we can teach that to anybody.
Of course. Yeah, attitude's so important. Attitude is, and I think I spoke to Ashley Austin, the Director of Business at Urbanize a couple of days ago, and we were speaking about the secret to success. And it was basically, if you unveil all the secrets, it's hard work, and there's no illusion. And we're in this day and age where everybody wants to find a mentor or a business coach to sort of tell them what to do and how to do it. But then they get that information and they still don't apply it. It's just, hard work. It's, people in this day and age, they say, how do you get fit? How can I get healthy? And it's just input, output. If you are working out more than what you're taking in and consuming, which is hard for somebody like me who's got a young one on the way and working the amount of hours, but there's no sort of secret to it. And it's exactly what you're saying.
It's becoming more difficult these days because we have so many tools at our disposal.
Of course. And
we can get access to the internet, databases, text message, email systems, social media, prop tech. There's a whole range of stuff that I can fill in my day. And all that does is put you in front of more people. And the other lesson in training my team is pick up the phone and call them.
Yeah.
Don't email them. Don't text them. Don't send them a DM, whatever that means, a direct message. All that is fantastic. Pick up the phone and speak to them and ask them how their lives and business is going.
I love that.
And it used to be a very easy thing to do because all we could do was on the phone. But generations coming through now, their social skills are not as developed as what they should be because they've spent way too much time. They were born, if you're 25, you were born with an iPad in your crib. Text messages are easier to break up with someone or ask someone out or whatever. The skills of human to human facial contact is disappearing. So if you can improve those skills, you will separate yourself from any of your competitors. by picking up the phone or going to see
Completely
someone.
Completely agree. I'm about to have a baby in the next, a little boy in the next 4 weeks with my girlfriend. And the way that I picked up her from a bar, and so everybody was talking about, you got to get on, get on social media, and you got to get on Tinder, and you got to text this girl, and you got to. Anyway, long story short, she was the girl that served me coffee at, stroke up a few conversations, had a chat to her, but then saw her at a bar and just had that old school approach where I'm just like, you know what? I'm just going to walk up to the bar, have a chat with her, see what she's up to tonight. And as crazy as it was, she's like, nobody comes up to me and just has a chat anymore.
Correct.
And, it's that, what do you mean you went up and you had a chat with her? No, you find her online and then you text her, and it's that old school methodology that just works, where people, if you say to somebody, "How you going?" ! People think you're screaming at them.
Yes.
And text so easily, and emails. I'm horrible at emails, where I send an email and
you showed her you're a man and not a soft boy.
Exactly.
Simple. End of story. There's I'm sure lots of soft boys were texting her and Googling her and all that sort of stuff.
100%.
She didn't want a soft boy. She wanted a man.
100%. And now she's got a man, and now we're having a kid together. So there you go.
Beautiful.
Kids. If you want to go up and have a conversation with someone, it's going to result in a child. So fair warning to you.
With a time gap in between.
Yeah, with a time gap in between. It's not instant. That's not instant. That's exactly right. And that old school approach is sort of, for lack of a better phrase, just cutting through the BS, right? I mean, We've had multiple marketing companies approach us at Balfour Homes and speak to us about what we're going to do is we're going to market to this amount of people, and what we want to do is you just spend X amount of dollars, and then you get them, and then there's a funnel, and then the funnel, then we target and we retarget them and all the rest of it. And I think that's very important, but there's an old school art of just picking up the phone when somebody has put an inquiry in or had an interest in what you're doing, and calling them and speaking to them and finding out whether they qualify or where they're at, or where they're at in the market. And I think that, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think that anybody listening, it is such an old art that it's really not that old, hopefully, because I was doing it 10 years ago when I first started in real estate.
Well, I get over 100 emails a day, which my PA just deletes. And they all start with, "Hi, Ray, I hope you're well. I've got this, I've got that," or whatever. I have no interest in entering those emails.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Every now and then I write back and say, "Look, I can always be reached on." I put my phone number down, and invariably they write back, "Oh yeah, I'm happy to take your call anytime." No, you call me. I'm not making your job easier. You call me, I'll take the phone call. Don't email me. Don't ask me to call you. And one of my pet hates at the moment is lots of people text me and say, "Are you free to give me a call, Ray?" Don't text me. Just call me.
Just pick up the phone and call me. And I can testify to that. We called Ray, and now he's in the podcast. So
end of story.
End of story. Yeah. I will get on the podcast and I'll have a chat with you. It's 100%. But people are afraid, or I don't know if afraid's the right word. People just don't want to do that. People want to say it's almost that shotgun approach. I would rather speak to. I can
tell you where it disappeared. And you're a young man about to have your first child, and here's a lesson in life for you.
Love it.
It disappeared because we disappeared from the kitchen table.
Yeah.
So around the kitchen table, you learn to converse with each other. You learn to be bored. You learn to when it's your turn to shut up. You learn it's your turn when you're to answer. And you learn when it's your turn to ask a question. And so the disappearance from the kitchen table has removed the social skills from people. Because we now eat in front of the TV, we now eat on the run, all those sorts of things. So the time of sitting at the kitchen table for half an hour and a half, where it was a conversation piece, not just an eating piece, is what has happened. So too many children now growing up without being around the kitchen table. And they, like I said, they learn to converse but more importantly, they learn to be bored. Because life cannot be exciting every second. So put the iPad down, put the phone down, listen to those boring stories from your father, your grandfather, and your mother. And they are boring, but you learn about life and you learn how to converse. That's the problem.
I love that. And the amount of times I was smacked around the back of the head from either my mum or my dad going, "Are you listening?"
Yep.
We're at the dinner. Are you listening? We're in the middle of a conversation here. And usually we're talking about who's going to do the dishes and who's going to wash up. But
then you weren't listening.
Yeah, 100% I wasn't listening. Or my older brother was trying to convince me that if he did for a certain amount of days, so it took my days on the Tuesday and the Wednesday and the Friday, and he did this week, then I had to do 2 weeks. And I was like, oh my goodness, so I don't have to do any days this week. Who cares about next week? And I learned the value of investing, which was he was investing in himself this week to gain an extra week on the back of it. But no, you're absolutely right that, even sitting around some families don't even have dinner tables. And when they do, there's a TV playing or a TV series. And I guess, is that where you learned a lot of your negotiating skills from? I did a bit of reading into your upbringing that you're brought up in a military family.
Yes, I come from a farming family out back Western Australia, but my father was in the army. He was in the Vietnam War. And my conversation skills and my history is of no interest to people. It's what the outcome is. I went to 13 primary schools. Between Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and Brisbane, because he would go to the war, we'd go back, he'd go again, we'd go to another base. So I was always meeting new people. So if you didn't have the gift of the gab or you get on with someone, that was different things. So at the time, it didn't bother me. It was just what life was or whatever. But it throws you into a different environment, and outside of your comfort zone is a good place to be. And then I finished my schooling at a boarding school, and boarding schools turn you into men straight away. You either survive or you don't. And so I look back, it was a great upbringing. And now I can go around Australia and I know about most places and all those sorts of things, but I lived all around Australia. That's fortunate for me. I don't say you have to do that, but the lesson I learned in my childhood was get out of your comfort zone. And something else, which is not a phrase I use regularly, but a good friend of mine gave it to me a couple of weeks ago. It was just disappearing from society. During my childhood, I was always curious about something else, be it science, history, maths, why that person's got red hair, why he's a faster runner than me. Be curious. Curiosity is what drives innovation. Curiosity is what drives your interest or whatever. So don't just be spoon-fed information and suck it in, be curious.
Yeah, that's incredible advice, which leads on to more questions, which then leads on to communication. You speaking to people about how you've done that, how have you, and I think that's something, where we're at the moment is sometimes you're too afraid to ask the question and you're afraid to lead on to more questions. And I think that's where we should be open to being curious, because
correct.
Yes.
And it's not being offensive. Don't start me on people being offensive these days. It's just being curious to share things. Yeah. But when you mentioned communication there, Jimmy, what we have to be careful of, and I spend a lot of time training my staff on this, and particularly senior people, you got to remember, when you're imparting information like we are now, most people don't care about you. Most people don't care about your history. Most people don't care about what you've been through. They care about what this information can do for them. So when you're communicating to people, rather than relay the history, relay how excited you are, relay how important is this to you, nobody's interested. Relay what this information can do for them. Sure. And the lesson I give to everybody, read an email. The first 2 or 3 paragraphs generally are, I'm so excited to offer you this. I've been working very hard. I've spent a lot of time and money on this. Don't care. Then on the last paragraph, and this will improve your business by 30%. Flip it around.
Sure.
I will improve your business by 30% based on these skills. Love to talk to you about it. So communication has got to be bang. We have a short attention span now. If it doesn't load on Google within 2 seconds, next. If I don't get the cup of coffee within 1 minute, next. If I don't get an instant reply, next. So you got a couple of only seconds. What's the important part? And it's an old hackneyed sales phrase. What's in it for me? If you give that in the first line of communication, whatever, you'll be able to do it. Then be excited. Then about the history of those sorts of things. Exactly. That's what you've got to do.
But also as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, that if it doesn't work and whatever your approach is the first time, some people would put that in the too hard basket or not going to follow up. But I think one thing that we're doing at the moment, which isn't enough, whether I don't want to be too philosophical here, but as a generation, which is give it a crack. And if it doesn't work, that doesn't fly with me. And I think the importance of follow up and follow through and consistently following up on somebody, that is an art. And some people forget that, which is I checked in with that person and they didn't want to do it for whatever reason. And so I've moved on. But that person, if they qualify qualify is the best word for it, qualify for whatever you're trying to push, product, sales, service, whatever it might be, and you let it go, it just means that you either in that particular time frame or what you're pitching at the particular time doesn't mean that they don't qualify. It just didn't mean that it's that right. The timing wasn't right. And I think
it's called perseverance.
Perseverance, 100%. And it's so important, and it's a lost skill. You know, what we always say to our staff as well, and I'm sure you say it to your staff, is that, you know, the sales or the transactions that just pop up out of nowhere don't just appear out of nowhere. Is that you're constantly staying in constant communication with, so that they know that you're still there. And when there's something that is right for them, you've already got that relationship with.
And the key to it there is what I said before, because you're right. But don't keep it communicating with, hey, we just won another 5 awards. Hey, I just did this. Again, they don't care about you.
Make it about them.
Make it about them.
Make it about them. And it's so important. And I think it's a lost skill, whether it's just admin, and nobody these days is good at admin, but just the follow up. It's so important to follow up. So with yourself, Ray, how did you get involved with First National, and when did it all start for yourself?
It started with me 15 years ago, and I was working in America at the time, and you had to return to your home city to get your visa green card renewed. And I happened to be in Melbourne, and obviously I live here. And our eldest daughter at the time was about to go to university, and I wasn't that keen of her going to be university in the States, because she would end up marrying an American. I like my children around me. And through a colleague, a very good friend, he approached, First National looking for a new CEO. And I went for the interview. I was the very last person to be interviewed. It was almost guaranteed for someone else. And for whatever skills I was able to provide, I ended up being at First National. And it's been one of the greatest joys of my working career, because real estate's an industry about talking to people, and I thoroughly enjoy it. And we're kicking lots of goals. So it happened by accident, but it happened by design.
100%. And is that something that you always were involved in, real estate? Something that you
love doing? Again, it's... I've had lots of different, in America, I was with a transportation group that was involved in the gaming industry. That was very exciting. Time living in Las Vegas and splitting between Los Angeles. And before that, I ran the Melbourne Football Club. That was an exciting industry involved in. We didn't have a lot of on-field success, but it was a great industry. Still involved in that. And before that, I was the marketing director for Asia Pacific for the biggest travel company in the world. And that took me all out through Asia. And I was in London every sort of 2 weeks for a meeting, and I was in the Emirates and Iraq 9 days after September 11. So that was exciting. But that teaches you about how to deal with different cultures and different processes. And before that, I had my own advertising agency, which I merged and sold just before that, when I was 40. And had done that for 10 years. Before that, I started in the insurance industry. But all of those different skill sets come down to what I said before: communication, looking outside the square, curiosity, new ways of development. I've been in the right place at the right time sometimes. When I was in the travel industry, it was the dawn of the internet. So we had to develop new ways of processing business or whatever. And I think they're the skills that any CEO needs. It's not so much the companies you worked at, it's how you think, because my role as a CEO is not to be concerned about 2020. In a normal environment, 2020 is done by now. It's a different environment now. So it's, but normally my role is to think about 2024. And that's what I should be thinking about, because 2020 was put to bed 2 or 3 years ago, notwithstanding the COVID situation at the moment. So the CEOs have to gather good people around them. They have to be better at the skill sets that you possess. They should be challenging me, which I've got a great team of senior executives to do that. And then we should be looking at, how's this product going to play out today? How's it going to play out in 2 years' time? And if it's not playing out, make a decision quickly and get rid of it and move on to another one. And so all those varying degrees of companies I've worked for, be my own business or someone else, has given me the great experience. And
that's unreal.
Running my own business for 10 years, that taught you all the things about cash flow, businesses, staff, hiring, firing, client demands. Running the football club brought me into the media world and the passion of sport. Working in America taught me about excellence, because Americans have a commitment to excellence. Working for the UK company was a trouble, and going all through Asia, doing business in China, Japan and Thailand and the Middle East. That taught me how to deal with different cultures and different perspectives, just from the basic, the way you should dress, the way you should, speak to people, whatever. So I've been very fortunate. I've always been surrounded by good people who've mentored me and kicked me around the head when I need to do, when I needed that or whatever. And I'm in the position now where 70% of what I pass on to my team and my customers is what I've learned from other people. And the other 30% is hopefully some of the skills that I've been able to pick up along the way. So, and that's the message to any young people listening. Don't be stuck in one area. When I left high school, I wanted to surf and chase girls. I had no idea I was going to be a CEO of a big real estate group, 40 years on or whatever, and do all those sorts of things. So, the old phrase, when opportunity knocks, you better be prepared. And it's full of the great unknown. Oh, can I do this? Will this work out? All those sorts of things. I mean,
should I keep chasing girls and keep on surfing? What am I going to do?
I mean, when I started my business, interest rates were 17%. I had 2 young children, mortgage or whatever. So there was plenty of reasons not to do it, but there was plenty of reasons to do it. That's the great Australian spirit.
Yeah, I love that. And Ray, I'm going to ask a personal question here, and I want you to be honest with us. But usually, and the people that you manage and that you work with that aren't in senior management or a CEO, people that are listening here tonight, I think like a lot of the time, and you kind of just touched on it now, that when they're faced with an opportunity or they're faced with a circumstance, they're overwhelmed with nerves. And so what they'll generally do, and some people trying to avoid those nerves, and then they look to people like yourself in your position where they're like, oh, he doesn't get nerves. I want to know if you still, and some people say, I'm still faced with those nerves. The difference is that I just push through them. I just persevere. Or the difference is that I was faced with nerves and then I managed to work through them over a certain amount of time. Or have you never been faced with nerves before, whether it's with a client meeting or the meetings that you're still involved with today? Can you shed some light on nerves and perseverance and pushing through and avoidance, I suppose?
Well, I'm in a fortunate position where, again, because of my upbringing, my generation was boys don't cry, you just got on with all those sorts of things. So that's disappearing a little bit. But I think just thinking off, from my experience to pass on to those sorts of things, nervousness is a good thing. I mean, I walk out on the stage and sometimes address 500, 1,000 people, and I can do without notes. And some people say I'm a great public speaker, and I thank them for saying that, because my concentrate on what message can these people take away from listening to me? Because like I said, no one's interested in me. There isn't what I can do for them. But you have to push through it. It's whatever it is. When I learned how to swim, my father took me at the end of the jetty, pushed me in and said, see you back at the shore. like two choices: drown or dog paddle back to the shore. So
Yeah.
it's never easy, but if you push yourself to it, you will get the rewards along the end. I mean, it was only this afternoon. We have a great finance manager. He's a fine young man, about 28 years of age. He's an accountant. Looks like an accountant, speaks like an accountant, does a great accountancy job of putting columns in the red or the black. And I'm teaching him how to engage with people. And I wanted to ring one of our officers in another part of New South Wales and just have a chat to them. Now, he was horrified, but I gave him 4 or 5 questions, asked these questions, and they'll talk about things or whatever. And he did that, and he was on the phone for half an hour. Now, I can't get 2 words out of him usually, but he was on the phone for half an hour. And he said to me the other day, at the end of it, he said today, what I was afraid of was if I ring them up, that I'm annoying them and that I'm holding up their day. But he said, the questions you gave me, which were what goes on in this town, tell me about your football team, the big St. George Dragons fan, what's going on in the market. He said, I asked them and they spoke to me. And I said, yes, because you were asking about them. And so, but he was very scared of doing that. But so to help people push through the nerves, you have to give them the framework to do it. Don't just think they know how to do it. So take the time. And this is what, when you're asking for someone to do something different, take the time. You know, whether it's hammering something at a wall or building a home, what you do, you've got to go through the training for it. So the same when you're doing something else, take the time to show them and let them make mistakes.
Yeah.
You know, you're not going to let your new chippy be the main guy on your $20 million house of the feature, but he's going to start in the back room in the basement to do something first. And that's what we forget sometimes. Because in the workplace now, there's very few people internally that actually train people. They just turn up, oh, that's your computer, that's your password. You know, you've got the job now, go ahead. If you've got any problems, see me, but I won't answer you because I can't be bothered. So just take the time to show them. That's how to get over nerves, but don't be scared of them. Pain tells you there's something wrong with your body. That's what pain is. Go and see a doctor. Nervousness is what you should be, because otherwise you get, I got this. It's no drama. I'm Joe Cool. You know, you want to be nervous, all that sort of stuff. But take the time, take it in small steps, and give it a go. And guess what? The first 5 times you try it, you'll fail 4.
Yeah.
But then the next time you'll fail 3, and you'll fail 2.
Yeah.
There's a great quote. I think it's by Albert Einstein. You know, success is not success. Success is a result of many, many failures. Yeah. And that's what people don't. We're too scared to fail now. People will pick on us. My teacher will be mean. My mum and dad won't love me. My friends will laugh at me, blah, blah, blah. Guess what? That's part of life.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. It's something that we tell our staff here. There's a really good book by Ryan Halliday, which is called Ego is the Enemy. And we would rather somebody come here that is willing to fail over and over and over again, and be susceptible or be open to learning certain traits or certain skills or even just be open to feedback. Yep. The person that can put their hand up and can say, I will take on board, I don't necessarily understand what you're saying, but I will gladly do what you say and fail, and then make a fool of myself, and then get customer feedback and get your feedback so that I can grow and I can learn, is going to be, or going to do far better than someone going, no, I don't want to fail, so I'm going to say this. Or when you give them feedback, they're going to say, well, you know, you weren't on the call, he didn't say that, or they didn't say that.
Or I'll add to the feedback, and this is for younger people there. When your boss, when your father, when your colleague, when someone who you respect gives you some feedback, they are not being offensive. They are not saying they hate you. They're not saying they don't like you. They're not saying you're no good as a person. All they're saying is, these are skills you're not good at, and I'm going to help you with it. So don't take offense at it. Yeah. It's not bullying. It's so not harassment. It is just, you are 22 years of age, or you're 32, or you're 52, and this is a new role, and I've been doing this role for a while, and I'm passing on your experience. I am not being offensive to you. Please don't take it as offense. Please don't take it as criticism. Take it as an opportunity to learn. And unfortunately, and I won't get into it, that is the problem with the Fair Work Act in Australia. It protects mediocre people who don't like being given feedback, and they see it as offence.
No, well, I agree with you. I agree. We are sometimes creating a culture that is around people that don't want to put themselves out there. And I remember my first sales call. Michael Pell was his name.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my boss at the time, I was selling for BGC, selling new homes. I was 18 years of age.
New jack shit.
Yeah. And I'd gone through the process, and the customer came back to me and they said they didn't want to move forward because of this. And I remember sitting there and I put the customer on loudspeaker and I said, this is what the customer said. And he said, you're going to put it on loudspeaker and I am going to mime what you're going to say. And I said, okay, but I may not know what they're saying. And he said, just reiterate exactly what I say. I had no idea for about 12, 15 minutes what I was saying. Customer was saying this, and then I was going, yeah, but because of the fiscal agreement with John Howard, I was saying things I had no idea what I was saying, right? But I didn't have an ego that said, no, like, that's not true. And so we said, to the point where at the end of the conversation, the customer said, oh, no, you're bloody right. And I suppose we are sort of dragging our feet. Well, Jimmy, what's the next step from here? And I just remember grabbing the phone and going like, putting them on mute and going like, what is the next step from here? What do they do? And my boss going, well, you sign them up. They're ready to go ahead. But that's the thing, if you can leave your ego at the door and you can go, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to take the advice of, and everything that we do, and I'm sure your company does as well. If somebody has had years and years of experience, but that hasn't worked with your company before, I'm sure your company, First National, has a stringent criteria or a set process on how they do things. It doesn't matter how many years you've done it before. You go right to the back of the line and you learn how we do things, because that's not how
Correct.
we do things compared to other companies. And it's important. And ego can choke you up and it can pin you down. And
you're reminded of something I used to say to people and had my ad agency.
Yeah.
New people would say, what's the worst thing a customer can say to us?
Yeah.
And I said, the worst thing a customer can say to us is, that's okay, Ray. Everyone's like that.
Yeah.
As soon as they say everyone's like that, that means we're the same as everybody else.
Exactly.
So if we promise to get it there at 4 o'clock, don't get it there at 4:05.
Yeah.
Whatever we're going to do, we will deliver. And in our concepts, in our creative, in our promises, whatever. So as soon as someone says, that's okay, Ray, everybody does that, that means we're down there with everybody else. And I want you, and I want your listeners and my people to be up there above someone else, that we never let people down.
Yeah. But you know what? I love that you've come on tonight and you haven't said, so the new way in 2020 to engage a bigger audience, or to get more people to listen to you, or to get your customers to understand what you're doing, is this SEO mixed in with this new age. If you line up your stars and you're a Libra and then you somehow get them to sign a petition, it is listening to your customer and taking in what they say, right? And then evolving your process around what is either your process or what the customer wants. It's listening, it's communicating, it's a conversation. And I think we can get so caught up with the best way to sell is this, and the new age way to advertise is this, and market is this. It is finding out what your customer wants, finding out whether that fits into, let's be honest, First National might not sell cheap homes. First National might not fit into every customer that comes through your scope, or that speaks to everybody. They may not be your customer, but if you stick to your process and you speak to the customer and understand what they want,
correct,
that is the most important thing. And it's a lost art, it's as my dad would always say, and he would reiterate it every term report that I got from every teacher. So I got 2 of these and 1 of these. And every report card of mine would say that Jimmy could do so much better
if he paid more attention.
If he paid more attention.
I know exactly what you're talking about. But he can talk to people, so that's great.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. If he just shut up for 1 second and wasn't so preoccupied in entertaining people. But I love that, Ray. So, Ray, what's the next step for you? What's the vision and where you're moving forward to? I know it's a loaded question, but for somebody like yourself as a CEO, which for one of the biggest real estate companies in Australia that everybody aspires to be, what is it that inspires you? What gets you out of bed and what motivates you? And what are you working towards? And what are you reading? And what are you doing on a daily basis?
What motivates me every day is that I'm always reinventing myself, always reinventing the company, always reinventing my team, reinvigorating them. And I've got a new assistant for me at the moment. She's only been with me a month, and the excitement she's brought and the joy she's brought to my heart and the information she's asking, whatever, looking at things from a different angle. She's curious. And so the development of that team, it's a hackneyed phrase, but I give them the power, I give them the empowerment, I give them the budgets, I give them the desire to want to do things differently. And then if they bring 10 things to me, 9 I say yes and 1 I say no. And most of the times they sort of argue with me. I say, no, that won't work or whatever. But I let them win the majority of the arguments. That's what motivates me. Yeah. Then for our company, real estate's a passion in Australia. You know, only Australia and New Zealand, a little bit the UK, have the same passion for real estate. Nowhere else in the world has it. You know, you go to any dinner party, you know, I sold this house, I got this house, down the road they got this, I bought this investment property, how's the market, what's going on? Those conversations don't happen around the world. So my desire for my company is to keep on harnessing that passion into what we do to be better. And it's only the last couple of weeks that I've thought of this as well. It's an idea for the next year or so. See, at the moment, with the first lockdown around Australia, then the second lockdown here in Victoria, then the third version we're into now, whatever. But if you go back to the first one in March and April, when you listen to the media, listen to people on radio, all those sorts of things, everyone spoke about they were spending time at home. They were in their home. They were doing things with their kids in their home. They were renovating their home. They loved spending time, you know, with their friends in their home. And so for our vision going forward is to reinforce the value of the home, that it's not a house, it's not necessarily an investment. It is if it's just a pure flat for student accommodation or something. I'm not confused there, but even with the rental activity, see, people who rent a home, they don't see it as a house that they're renting, it's their home. So my vision going forward for Australia and our company is how do we reinforce, and it's a business you're in, how do we reinforce that this is just not 4 walls, it's a home. We got that passion in Australia at the moment. So reinvigorating the team, allowing them to reinvent themselves. See, when I had my own business, every year, at the end of the year, we used to burn everything we did. The videos, the TV campaigns, the brochures, people be in tears. Oh, this is my beautiful work. What are we doing? And what that was, they would go away for Christmas. Santa Claus would come. They would come back after January, go to a new school, get the contact out, get their exercise books ready, line up the pencils nice and neat, and create from day one. I didn't want them rehashing the year before. I wanted to have new ideas and fresh and everything like that, because in business, whatever you think is your edge, whatever you think you're better than the competition is, within a week, a year, they've caught up. So you can't rest on those laurels. You have to reinvent yourself. So the feature you put in your homes that makes you unique or whatever, 6 weeks later you walk down some of your opposition, hey, they've stolen it. Of course they have. We're all copycats. So as long as they keep on stealing the ideas off you, that's great. As long as
you're a leader,
that means you're second. So
you're in
that
front.
Reinvention, and it's what I have to do. You know, that my different speeches, my different philosophies. Some people say, "Why you chop and change?" I'm not chopping changing. I'm letting go what was great in 2019. I'm letting go what's been good in 2020. I'm creating something even better in 2021. So I know that's a long-winded answer to your question, but it's
I love it.
That's what we're heading.
No, but it's great. It's so great to hear that. And you know, I had a young staff member ask me today, Jimmy, what's your goal for the next 5 years? And I said to him, I can't tell you. I can't give you an answer, because in the next 5 years, if I have this one plan and I am sticking towards that plan, I'm going to miss multiple opportunities along the way. They're going to present themselves. And so, yes, you have a dream and you have a vision to be the biggest and you have a vision to be the best, but you have to be, and you have to adapt to change. And you have to, and exactly like you said, at the end of every single year, you know, if you hadn't done that, you know, it was like, no, Ray, we don't need to go on the internet. Because let's just keep advertising in pamphlets and in newspapers, and you'd still be back stuck in the 99s.
And to add to that planning stuff, something I'm trying to leave some tips here for your listeners.
Yeah, I agree.
The greatest waste of time in any reinvention or any planning going forward is the SWOT analysis: strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats. Complete and utter waste of time. It was invented by a facilitator who's never actually done anything other than run a meeting. Because if you don't know what your strengths are, get out of business. If you don't know what your weaknesses are, get out of business. If you don't know what your opportunities are, well, you're going broke. If you don't know what your threats are, it doesn't really matter. Don't worry about the opposition. Worry about yourself. So don't spend a day sitting around analysing all that. It just gives a chance for the clever people in the room who are no good at their job to show what they know, but they don't know how to do it. And it just turns it on. And we do this beautiful document and we write it all up and all those sorts of things, and no one looks at it until you do the next one.
I agree. Or it shows that it's a fad, right? It's like, do you know what so when you speak to a marketing, do you know what your SWOT is? And you're going, I don't know, like the army, or what is SWOT? And they're like, how are you running a business and you don't know what SWOT is? And of course, you know what it is when you actually break it down. You just don't know the new age abbreviation or whatever it might mean. It's like,
it's simple. What's our strength? We're better than the opposition. What's our weakness? We're not doing it quick enough. What's our opportunity? Get out there and sell. What's the threat? We're not doing it quick enough. There's it is. I've just done a whole SWOT analysis in one go.
That is so true, isn't it? Yeah, but Ray, how can we identify? Go back to the S, please. I haven't got that down. It's so true. Ray, I want to ask you one more question, and it's another loaded question. How does somebody? You're a CEO. You haven't always been a CEO. You've obviously worked your way up. How does somebody that's getting themselves involved in any industry, how do they get the CEO's attention? How do they get somebody like you to take notice of somebody that has just started and go, that person's going to be somebody? How do you get noticed?
The main way is, like I said, not a loaded question. The main way is be annoying in a nice way. So if you're in the accounts department, there's no reason for you to come up and say on the weekend, and I really like this concept. I think it'll work well in our business. That shows me you're thinking outside the square. So it's annoying in a nice way. Because you are in the marketing department doesn't mean to say you can't help with logistics. Because you're in the logistics department, can't be. We're all humans. We're all annoying in a nice way. Don't use it to say, nah, I'm better than the other person. Should we do it? Hey, boss, I was just thinking this or whatever. That will bring you to my or your manager attention. I didn't know that Harry used to think like that. Okay, and then that in a week's time or a year's time, that position, I reckon Harry could be good at that. Well, why? Well, he mentioned this today. So just show that little bit of difference in it.
Initiative.
Don't bring an apple for the teacher every day. Don't send me a birthday card saying, Ray, you're the best boss in the world. You know, anyone can do that. Just be annoying.
I love that suit you're wearing today, Ray. I love your hairstyle.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's probably the best thing, and then just be prepared to do it, because you'll be given an opportunity to be outside your comfort zone, and guess what? You'll fail at it, but when your boss or your manager gave it to you, they probably didn't really expect you to succeed 100%. They just wanted to see how you're going to give it a go. And so grab that opportunity when it happens. I mean, my, two of mine was, I was given the chance at 29 in the building I was in Burke Street here in Melbourne. I had to get 7 floors into 4. I just thought that was a logistic exercise.
Wow.
I didn't know it was a human emotion exercise, because 10 people lost offices, 5 people got smaller desks, some people got set on a different floor, they didn't like it, blah, blah, blah. So it was all just human emotion I learned about. And when I went to my boss, I said, why did you get me to do that? And he said, now you know how to deal with people. I just thought it was moving desks. So, and your boss is not expecting you to be the 100% success, but they want to see how you handle the challenges.
Exactly. I love that. That is such great advice, you know.
And the other one, I said there was 2. I did the October share market crash of 87. I worked for an organisation then. Over the next 24 hours, we had the opportunity to lose $94 million. I was a junior nobody in the department. The chairman locked us in a room and he said, we've got to lose, not less. And at 1 a.m. I went forward with an idea which was annoying. And he said, oh, if you're wrong, boy, you won't work here. But if you're right, you'll be going ahead. Thankfully, I was right. So we hardly lost any money at all of it. So opportunity presents itself in different ways and ideas. And if your boss is not a good boss, well, that's not your fault. They'll eventually be fired, and you'll get opportunities somewhere else.
Back yourself in for the win.
And you'll make a mistake. Don't be afraid of that. You will stuff it up. It doesn't matter.
100%. And when you do, you're the one to blame. Don't blame anybody else. Take it on your shoulders, because the minute you fail, and you don't take it on board, then you stop yourself from learning and then growing. And that's where we see a lot of people get cut and stopped in a rut.
If rather than listening to me or you, there's a great movie came out about 12 years ago called Margin Call, and it's about the night of the GFC crash in America. And there's a couple of boardroom scenes there which explain what we were speaking about perfectly.
That's better off. You don't need to listen to us. Go watch Margin Call, and that'll give you all the advice you need. I love it. Ray, I personally really appreciate your time tonight. And like we first started this podcast where you said, if you want to get a hold of me, don't email me, just call me. Well, that's how we got you on the podcast.
That's how we got it.
And I
Pleasure
really
to help.
appreciate.
I hope I'm able to give some information or whatever, because passing information is important.
And then some.
Look forward to chatting again. Look in person. I think you probably should record. You've been speaking to a Victorian. Put that on the police records, because we're the lepers of Australia at the moment. So if you get sick, I apologise. But as soon as I'm in Sydney, we'll catch up.
I'll wipe the mic. Next time you're in Byron Bay, let's catch up. But it was so lovely to speak to you, Ray. And thanks so much for coming on. And
pleasure.
Thanks so much.
Be well. Be safe, everybody. Bye.
Thanks, Ray. Appreciate it.